The man holds the main character's resume, saying, "Mr. Han, based on your academic qualifications and work experience, we're unable to offer you this position. However, given your relationship with Mr. Du, we'll keep you in mind for future openings." The man, sporting glasses and a hint of stubble, appears taken aback. "How so?" The interviewer in the suit presses on. "Should a suitable opportunity arise, we'll notify you promptly," he assures. "I already have a job, so I'll take my leave." "Thank you," he hastily responds, eager to depart. A woman in a suit beside him sympathetically offers, "I'm sorry things didn't work out. Would you like me to call a taxi?" Han sits on a chair, gripping it tightly while murmuring regrets about his decision to come. As he emerges from the office, a suited man remarks to the woman, "I heard he and Mr. Du attended the same school and university together, and rumor has it, his ex-partner absconded with all his savings." Han listens intently as the man continues, "How audacious of him to seek Mr. Du's assistance. No wonder the boss yearns for the old days when such requests didn't burden him." Disappointed, Han furrows his brow and tightens his lips. Another missed opportunity, he laments inwardly, thinking, "I wanted to support him, but it's all just a facade, a futile effort by a defeated adult." At the metro station, Han swipes through the turnstile, his head bowed in contemplation. With one hand, he grips the strap of his burdensome briefcase, while the other remains buried in his pocket, a symbol of his introspection into his misfortunes. The approaching train breaks the silence with the familiar grind of its wheels against the rails. As it draws nearer, Han, lost in thought, wonders if the lights have dimmed. Shaking his head, he calls out, only to be met with the sound of a bell. Suddenly, Han's eyes widen, his mouth agape, before he hangs a blue cube, announcing, "The newbie gift set is open." Stunned, he gazes at the floating cube as it proclaims, "Through accumulated consumer value, your desires will be realized. Make a wish." Filled with hope, Han directs his plea to the hovering cube, "If this is real, I want to turn back time." With resolve, he presses the confirm button. As a surreal sensation envelopes him, he floats in midair, hands covering his face, determined that this time he will forge a path to success. With closed eyes, he awaits the transformation. Han's eyes widen at the approaching train, the wheels on the rails signaling its arrival. Startled, he places his hand against the window and peers at his reflection, feeling a rush of disbelief. Cupping his face in his hands, a flush of embarrassment spreads across his cheeks. Am I truly younger now? Have I actually traveled back in time? He ponders, turning his head to the side. Across from him sits a young blonde girl named Yin Fei, gazing out the window. Impossible, Han mutters, his gaze fixed on Yin Fei. She notices his attention and removes an earphone, inquiring, "Do you need something?" Nervously, Han waves his hands and responds, "No, I was just wondering which route we're taking." He can't comprehend why the most popular girl from his school is seated across from him. Could it be? Han's eyes widen as he realizes the date, August 30th, 2013. Leaning on the table, Han addresses Yin Fei, "Don't you remember me?" She holds an earphone in her hand and asks, "Did we go to the same high school?" Han confirms, "Yes." "Have you enrolled already?" She nods, "Yes." "You've taken the wrong bus route," Han remarks. Yin Fei anxiously questions, "Is the other route more expensive? Doesn't this bus go to Jianjin?" Frustrated, Han adjusts his glasses, closes his eyes, and rubs his forehead. He wanted to confess his feelings for her. Yan's eyes dart around as Pan, smiling, sits beside her, proclaiming, "Our meeting is fated." Yin Fei recoils, closing her eyes, and cries out, "Stay away! Sean, help me." An enraged man in a white t-shirt and beige cape stands behind Han. Sean orders him to leave Yin Fei alone. Han slumps back in his seat, covering his face. Xiaoan and Yin remain seated across from him. Han's mind swirls with the weight of past regrets. "Why was I ever like that?" he groans inwardly, his hand reaching for a jar of instant noodles. Memories flood back. He was always eating instant noodles. Glancing at Sean with disdain, he thinks, and he's still the same as ever. The old me might have confronted him, but not anymore. Pouring hot water into the noodles, a bell rings, and a system message flashes. The wish function is closed. The consumer system is officially open. On the display, Han spots his name in categories like life, knowledge, physical fitness, and appearance, primary characteristics, and secondary characteristics. Surprised, Han studies the system interface. What are these? What other characteristics? At 18, I was such a fool. Just seeing myself then makes me cringe, he reflects. Examining the specs, he notices a hint, core of the system. Gain experience through consumption to improve skills and characteristics. Simple rules, he muses. A peculiar detail catches his eye. Why are there two driving tests with different levels? Flustered, he covers his mouth, flushing. Maybe the system revolves around driving, making money, improving consumption. If I level everything up to 5, I'll reign supreme. I used to be just an average guy, but now I'll surpass everyone and become someone entirely new. In his vision, Han stands tall in godly robes, arms outstretched, head held high, a crowd at his feet. He beckons to a plump figure. Are you finished? With arms wide open, he declares, this is reality. Marching forward, noodles in hand, he contemplates, spending money isn't the issue. First, you need to earn it. I need to figure out how to make my first buck. Sean offers to treat Yin Fei to the restaurant in the carriage. She responds that she's fine with noodles. Han jokes, Andy will scold me for eating this stuff. Yin Fei turns to Xian, snapping, you? What's your deal? I am me. My mother is my mother. Stop patronizing me. Speechless, Xian is left baffled. Han chuckles at the scene. Confused, Xian demands to know what's funny. Pointing a finger at Han, he asserts angrily, they were childhood sweethearts, so it's my responsibility to take care of her. So, don't laugh. Yin Fei asserts that she simply wants to eat what she wants. Han indulges in his noodles, thinking, every favor they show equals aiding their opponent. Seems like this guy and I are headed different ways. Moments later, Yin returns, determined, explaining that she arrived late and most of the items were sold out. Han offers her a pack, saying, if you don't mind, I have some duck legs. Yin Fei's eyes light up with joy as she asks, how much? Han replies, 2 and A2U is a fair price. Yin Fei explains she doesn't have such small denominations and will try to find 3U. With his mouth full, Han insists, that's too much, and offers her half an orange, saying, we should share equally. Take half an orange. Yin Fei is touched by his gesture, exclaiming, wow, I didn't expect you to be so considerate, smiling sweetly with closed eyes. Han blushes slightly, murmuring, thanks, thinking to himself, she has such a lovely smile. Sean tosses a wad of money on the table, declaring, I have money. I could have paid for the entire restaurant car, but you chose to accept his leftovers. Yin Fei scolds him for his rudeness. Sean, frustrated, directs his anger at Yin Fei. You'd rather eat a packaged duck leg than join me in the restaurant carriage? Yin Fei rises, confronting him. Have you ever considered my feelings? Meanwhile, Han discreetly hides behind a piece of paper, pondering intensely about the cruelty of this girl's actions. Yin confronts Sean, asserting, stay out of this. We're not meant for each other. Just leave me alone. With firm steps, she exits the scene. Sean queries her destination, to which she replies she's taking out the trash. Sean shoots a menacing glare at Han, grabbing him roughly by the collar. Han tumbles, his glasses flying off. Sean blames Han for the altercation, delivering a swift kick and ordering him to leave his sight. Collapsed on the carriage floor, a drop of blood stains the ground beneath Han. Rising onto all fours, he muses, I never realized how feeble my 18-year-old body was. Yet, even as Sean turns away, Han desperately wipes the blood, a manic grin crossing his face, fixated on his pot of gold, while Sean clings to his golden ticket. As the train plunges into darkness, Yin stands over Han's prone form on a bed. She queries the doctor about his condition. The doctor, examining him with a flashlight, grimly reports, his pupils are unresponsive. He's in a deep coma. It's a severe cranial brain situation, very pessimistic. Where's the next stop? We need to get him there fast. A system table materializes, detailing extensive injuries. Left arm bruising, hip fractures, nasal and oral cavity bleeding, and multiple facial bruises. Han's face is a canvas of contusions. Sean, realizing the extent of the trouble he's caused, can't fathom the consequences. Han, seated on the floor, cradles his bruised face. Sean's rage erupts, demanding, "You idiot! How could you fake it?" In a moment of recollection, Han revisits his past life, where fists resolved all conflicts. Through gritted teeth, Sean seizes him by the collar, demanding an explanation. Bruised and battered, Han claims he's a monster, smiling through the pain. Sean seethes with anger, unknowingly provoking Han's resolve to show true ruthlessness. Han locks eyes with Sean, his gaze cold as ice, and utters, "I struggled without your assistance."
I'm genuinely thankful.
Han's smile only fuels Sean's rage, veins bulging with fury. In a fit of anger, Sean strikes Han forcefully across the face. Panic ensues among the witnesses, demanding the police's intervention. Sean pins Han down, threatening to beat him to death, while others attempt to intervene, urging Sean to stop. Sean, determined, continues to break free, pleading to be released. Yin, alarmed, demands they cease immediately, bewildering Sean, who tries to explain himself. Shaking his head in disbelief, he glances between Yin and Han, the latter nearly unconscious. Han, with a faint smile, whispers to Sean, "Loser." Yin pushes Sean away, cradling Han's face, frantically seeking help. Han reassures her weakly, urging her not to worry, before slipping into unconsciousness as an alarm blares. Yin, sitting by his side, closes her eyes, calling out for a doctor. As the policeman attends to Sean and interviews witnesses, Sean asserts that Han initiated the altercation. However, another witness interjects, insisting he saw Sean approaching Yin, which led to the confrontation. Friends corroborate that Han offered no resistance during the attack. Yin overhears the conversation and blames herself for Han's injury, feeling guilty that he got hurt because of her. Sean shouts that while it's true Han struck the first blow, Han also mocked him. The policeman interrupts, admonishing Xiaoran to consider the consequences of his actions when resorting to violence. He warns Xiaoran not to believe he can get away with beating others just because he's wealthy, emphasizing that if anything happens to Han, Xiaoran will face legal repercussions and imprisonment. With tears streaming down his face, Xiaoran pleads with Yin to intervene, insisting he's not that kind of person. Yin, tearfully pulling her hand away, leaves Xiaoran stunned and confused, calling out her name in disbelief as he reaches for his phone to call his father, hoping his parents will find a solution. Meanwhile, Sean's father calls him, inquiring about his well-being and whether he's eaten. Overcome with emotion, Sean breaks down, crying out, "Dad, it's Han." Han clicks his tongue in pain, surprising Yin. She rushes to assist him, asking how he's feeling. Blushing, Han tries to reassure her, despite his nose starting to bleed. He covers it with his hand, insisting he's fine. Concerned, Yin asks about the blood, prompting Han to blush further as he gazes at her, admiring her as if she were a goddess. Yin expresses her relief but insists they'll go to the hospital once they arrive at the station. Han interrupts, insisting he's okay. Yin, covering her face with her hand, points out his missing teeth, causing Han to ponder the situation. Although he tries to maintain composure, Han admits the attacker suddenly assaulted him without reason. The doctor needs to examine him for the report. The doctor interjects. As the train emerges from the tunnel, Yin gazes out the window, her thoughts consumed by Sean's violent outburst. How could he attack a stranger? The fear and excitement flicker across her face as she contemplates the potential consequences. Suddenly, someone enters the carriage. The nurse rushes to catch Han as he stumbles, and he gratefully embraces her, declaring, "Thank you. You're truly the goddess of our old high school." beautiful and kind. Surprised, she looks up at him and realizes they attended the same school, explaining his familiarity to her. Encouraged by Yin, Han sits down on the floor and addresses the nurse as the goddess. "You remember me? What an honor," he remarks. She supports him, teasing that even in his current state, he's still acting cocky. Han acknowledges her point, admitting he should focus more on training in the future. Reflecting on the incident, he muses that while it would have been preferable to be attacked alone, he should at least be able to protect the girl beside him. He flexes his muscles, proclaiming himself a tough guy. Yin agrees with his sentiment but reminds him to prioritize his own safety first, playfully tapping him on the back, causing him to wince in pain. As a policeman escorts a tearful Shan away, Han's eyes widen, contemplating the saying, "If you often walk by the river, your shoes will get wet sooner or later." He hopes that Shan will learn to control his temper in the future. In the hospital ward, Han sits on the bed, covered in bandages, and jokingly asks the nurse, "Am I in heaven?" She chuckles and reassures him, explaining that he's in a specially designated room with the best medicines and can rest until he's better. Han smiles gratefully, giving her a thumbs up. "Thank you for your hard work. I appreciate it," he says sincerely. Later, a system table appears displaying the inscription, "A Tribute Panel Experience. 12 out of 50 points, 2000. Han examines the table, realizing these are his experience points. Despite not directly paying the medical bills, they're still attributed to him, converting into experience points. Grinning with satisfaction, he lies back on the bed, delighted with this discovery. His reverie is interrupted by Yin Fei's arrival, holding a bouquet of flowers. "Han, how are you feeling?" she inquires. Han gestures for her to sit on the bed, suggesting they address each other informally to avoid embarrassment. Yin suggests calling him tough guy, causing Han to blush. "You're teasing me on purpose," he remarks with a laugh. Yin then hands him his glasses, which she brought along. As Han gazes at Yin, he reflects on their limited interaction in his past life, envisioning her in a wedding dress. However, his smile fades as he recalls hearing about her grand wedding. Blushing, he acknowledges her cute demeanor and good character, realizing he owes Shan the opportunity to reconnect with her. Yin begins peeling an apple, mentioning that her father will arrive soon and suggesting they exchange contact information. Han is surprised by the offer, but Yin smiles and asks if he uses WeChat. Confirming, Han mentions he's already sent her a request. Before they can continue, they're interrupted by a voice announcing visitors. The nurse ushers several people into the room. Yin embraces a man and affectionately calls him Daddy. Her father checks on her injuries and then turns his attention to Han, offering an apology on behalf of Shan's father. The man with the bald head bows deeply, expressing his regret for his son's actions. He introduces himself as Shan's father, acknowledging his failure to raise his son properly. They've come to apologize to Han. Han waves his hands, dismissing the need for apologies. However, Shan's father insists he remains still to avoid exacerbating his injury. Meanwhile, a woman with red hair tied up covers her face with a dark fan, remarking that apologizing is indeed appropriate and acknowledging their failure in properly raising their son. She suggests compensating Han for the incident. Putting on an innocent facade, Han rests his chin on his hands, addressing Mr. and Mrs. Pan. He admits his fault in the altercation, acknowledging that he shouldn't have provoked Shan by calling him a loser. Mr. Pan presents an offer of 800,000 yuan as compensation, stunning Han. His eyes widen in disbelief, but he smiles with satisfaction and clenches his fist, pondering how many points he could obtain with such a large sum. Mr. Pan indicates a willingness to add more to the compensation if necessary, while Mrs. Pan confirms their offer. Han reflects on Mr. Pan's willingness to spend his son's earnings, feeling grateful for the opportunity to resolve the issue peacefully. Mr. Pan emphasizes the importance of teaching Shan the consequences of his actions, acknowledging that resolving the issue with money doesn't address the root problem. He vows to reform Shan to prevent future problems. Han, sitting on the bed, scratches his head, revealing that he doesn't actually need the money. He wants Shan to understand the gravity of his actions and the potential harm to his family. He agrees to resolve the issue due to the Pan family's sincere approach. However, he warns that future incidents won't be resolved so easily. Moved to tears, Mr. Pan grasps Han's hands, promising to ensure Sean apologizes once Han is released. He vows to reform his son to prevent further trouble. Mrs. Pan turned to Mr. Pan, suggesting, "It's time we left. Let Han rest." Apologizing to Han, Mr. Pan expressed, "Sorry, Han. Please rest and take care. I won't disturb you anymore." Han bid farewell to Yin, her father, and the Pans. Mr. Pan extended an apology to Yan's father, Mr. Chun, acknowledging, "Mr. Chun, please accept my apologies. My child's behavior has caused you trouble. I assure you it won't happen again. Let's not allow this incident to affect our family's long-term relationship." Mr. Chun smiled reassuringly. "Certainly," he responded, though privately resolving, "if this guy causes trouble again, I'll handle it myself." He continued, "We're running late. You have your own matters to attend to. Please proceed without worry." Mr. Pan agreed, adding, "Indeed, I have some paperwork to sort out. Once it's done, I'll reach out to you." They parted ways. Curious, Mr. Chun asked Yin, "What's on your mind?" She reflected. Sean seemed rather odd. Expressing concern, Mr. Chin inquired, "Is that young man from the Pan family still bothering you? Your mother's decision to have him accompany you was surprising. I'll discuss this with her later." If Sean had been as mature and sensible as Han, none of this would have occurred. Mr. Chin noted, "You've only known each other for a day, yet you seem to have formed a bond." Yin replied, "That's not entirely accurate. Sean and I attended the same high school. He even got into a fight because of me, but I find it easy to befriend him. He's genuinely kind," she remarked with a smile, asking her father, "What's your take on him?" After pondering, Mr. Chun responded, "He displayed maturity and reason." Yin pressed for specifics. "Please elaborate, Dad," she requested, closing her eyes in anticipation. Mr. Chun addressed his daughter, saying, "My dear, boys of such maturity at your age are often shaped by their life circumstances. For them, success often outweighs personal emotions. If you ask me about his future prospects, I can confidently say he'll be persistent, adaptable, and determined. He's truly an exceptional young man." Yin Fei chuckled lightly, covering her mouth, and replied, "I don't doubt that." Continuing, Mr. Chen cautioned, "However, I must remind you that being involved with someone like him can be challenging. In his mind." Mr. Chun sighed and added, "My dear, please refrain from falling in love." Yin Fei nodded reassuringly, smiling as she said, "Don't worry, Dad. He doesn't interest me." Switching gears, Han reflected on his situation, examining the table before him. Mr. Pan had mentioned providing 200,000 yuan for medical expenses, which translated into points upon completing treatment, he noted. Lost in thought, he collapsed onto the bed. Considering his accumulating points, Han wondered how best to utilize them. Adjusting his glasses, an idea struck him. "Of course," he exclaimed. Contemplating his facial injuries and other concerns, Han pondered the possibility of improving his vision without drawing attention. Accessing the spreadsheet, Han selected Vision Restoration, 300 points, while reminiscing about his grandfather and past struggles with poor eyesight. With determination, Han addressed the system, confirm? Closing his eyes momentarily, then reopening them, Han was surprised by the clarity of his vision as the electronic system confirmed, "Your vision has been restored." Han rose from the hospital bed and approached the mirror, removing his glasses and adjusting his hair as he gazed at his reflection. "What a striking difference," he remarked, smiling. "Eyes truly are the windows to the soul, as a wise master once said." He admired the clarity and vibrancy of his eyes, reflecting on how such subtle changes could significantly impact one's persona. Leaning against the spreadsheet, Han contemplated, then pressed the button with a determined thought. "Accept," he decided. Observing his attractiveness rating rise by 3 points, he recognized the interconnectedness of various features and the importance of optimizing overall appearance. As his phone pinged with a notification, Han retrieved it from the bedside table to find a message from Yin. I'm at the Confucius Temple. Need anything? He replied promptly, You know I'm still toothless. Bring a book instead. Yin acknowledged her oversight. Sorry, I'll get you a book soon. Han reassured her. No need to apologize. I'll be here. Did you encounter any issues with the Pan family? Concerned, he added. I worry about you. Yin, puffing out her cheeks, replied, No problems, just dealing with some drama. Meanwhile, Mr. Chan observed Yin with a curious expression, sensing something unusual. The next day, Han greeted Yin with a smile, holding the book she had brought. I asked for a book, but isn't this a bit much? He teased, scratching his nose. Perplexed, Yin responded, Don't you like it? Covering her mouth with her hand. Feeling offense, Han replied, I see you're teasing me. I'll reimburse you for the trip. Just take it back. Yin handed him the book, saying, I was joking. It's a popular collection of short stories. Accepting the book, Han praised her. You're truly dependable. Your mood changes so quickly. Yin, smiling, replied, I'm no goddess, just your sister, with a playful wink. Yin approached Han, who glanced at her with curiosity. Blushing, Han recoiled slightly, covering his face with his hands. Don't scrutinize me so closely. I'm not selling myself, he quipped. Arms crossed, Yin retorted. No one was thinking about that, but I have to say, without your glasses, your charm is off the charts. Adjusting his hair, Han pondered, Do you really think so? Once I'm fully recovered from my injuries, I'll be even more charming. Laughing, Yin covered her face. So now you're claiming you're a handsome guy, and those glasses were just hiding all this charm, she teased. Han gestured to himself, affirming, Exactly. Although Yin promised not to disturb him further, she mentioned a visit before her departure the next day. Han reached out to stop her. Aren't you going to hear me out? He asked. Waving goodbye, Yin replied, Better prepare a speech to impress my dad tomorrow, leaving Han puzzled by her sudden mention of her father as he waved back. Later, Shan approached Han with an apology. I'm sorry for my outburst. I acted recklessly and mishandled my emotions. Please accept my sincere apology, he said, bowing to Han, who was seated on the hospital bed. Mr. and Mrs. Pan stood nearby, visibly emotional. Crossing his arms, Han replied, I accept your apology. You have loving parents. Don't make them worry any further. A man in a black suit handed Han some documents, prompting Shan's inner frustration. Han, however, remained composed, reflecting on the contract's contents, which Mr. Pan had ensured were problem-free. Along with the 800,000 yuan compensation, Han calculated Mr. Pan's additional 200,000 yuan expenditure for treatment and other costs. Accepting a red envelope from Mr. Pan, Han expressed gratitude. You're too generous, Mr. Pan, he acknowledged. With a total of 1.15 million yuan received, Han contemplated how to utilize the money, realizing he could boost his characteristics to level 69 and still have 500,000 yuan remaining. Han pondered his financial situation, realizing that while 500,000 yuan was substantial, it might not suffice for future enhancements. Contemplating the idea of spending 1 million yuan on a cozy apartment, he weighed the prospect of sacrificing culinary variety for financial stability, tears welling in his eyes. Interrupted by a call, Han sat up and answered, I'm here. Yin entered, accompanied by Mr. Chan. We came to check on you. How are you feeling? Yin inquired. Han reached out to shake Mr. Chen's hand, receiving a comforting pat on the shoulder. Just rest and take it easy, Mr. Chen advised. We're about to leave, but we wanted to visit you before departing. Here's a little gift from Mion. Take it, he said, handing Han a red envelope. Surprised, Han questioned, What's this for? Mr. Chen explained, I've never said this before. This whole situation stemmed from Shan's mishandling of his emotions. I'm here to apologize and make amends. Placing the envelope on the nightstand, Han blushed and adamantly refused. I can't accept this. Yinfei isn't responsible for Shan's actions. She's innocent, so I can't take this money. Mr. Chun placed a reassuring hand on Han's shoulder, acknowledging, "You're truly a hero among young people. I understand. When you're feeling better, come visit me as a guest." Scratching his head, Mr. Chun added, "By the way, your grades must be good, right? If your university is near where my daughter studies, I may have to ask you to look out for her." Han, still in shock, waved his hands frantically, explaining, "I attend Shanghai International Research University." Yin gazed at him with admiration, her cheeks flushed with color. Han revealed, "Yes, it's just a third-tier liberal arts university." Yin and Mr. Chun were stunned by this revelation. Han admitted that in his youth, he underestimated the importance of grades, leading him astray. It wasn't until later that he felt remorse for his choices. "But I've learned from my mistakes," Han stated, meeting Mr. Chin's astonished gaze. Placing a hand over his glasses, he continued, "Since I can't change the past, I'll embark on a new chapter by pursuing higher education." "Well said," Mr. Chun agreed. "The past is immutable, but what matters is improving the future. With the substantial compensation you've received, have you considered starting your own business?" Feeling apprehensive, Han replied, "You're right, but I need time to collect my thoughts and plan." Mr. Chun nodded knowingly. "I expected as much. The world will be yours in a few years, young man." "Han," Mr. Chun continued, "even after 20 years, you'll remain a stalwart presence. You've raised Yin Fei well. I believe in your potential to thrive." With a wave, Mr. Chun signaled their departure. Yin smiled warmly and waved goodbye, her cheeks tinged with blush. Han bid them farewell, thinking, "She's adorable." "It's time to take action," Han resolved, clenching his fist with determination. "Are you certain about leaving the hospital?" the nurse inquired. "Yes," Han affirmed. Accepting her offer to connect as friends, he agreed. In the coming years, the country will undergo rapid development, Han contemplated. In 2 years, prices will soar. Those who seize this opportunity will prosper. Han boarded the bus, blending into the throng of passengers. Gazing out the window, he mused, "I can't even recall the last time I rode a bus." Arriving at the real estate agency, Han confidently addressed the staff, "City of Dreams, hello? I'd like to purchase a small apartment, ideally 40 to 60 square meters, near the university." Placing his bank card on the table, he added, "If there's a suitable option, I'm prepared to pay in full." A well-dressed employee greeted him warmly, presenting an apartment with a great view near the university at a surprisingly affordable price. "This?" Han exclaimed admiringly, pointing at the offer. Pleased with the price, Han reflected on how his parents had once saved for a down payment on an apartment. "I should have made the purchase then," he realized, envisioning his parents reassuring him. But now, those thoughts were irrelevant. Entering the apartment, Han was overwhelmed with joy. "It's so luxurious," he thought, a tear of happiness forming. Approaching the mirror, he spread his arms wide, declaring, "With over 1 million points, it's time for an upgrade." He smiled confidently. "Restore my teeth," he exclaimed, but to his disappointment, nothing happened. Consulting the system table, he realized that dental treatment required a higher level of skill. Examining the table further, he noted the options for improving appearance points. "I'll need to level up first," he reasoned. Studying the spreadsheet, Han strategized. Mr. Pan mentioned scattering the glasses evenly. "I mustn't miss anything." Determined, he delved into planning his enhancements. As bright light flooded his vision, Han rubbed his eyes, feeling a surge of power coursing through his body, accompanied by a newfound clarity in his mind. "This strength is overwhelming," he thought, struggling to cope with the influx of information bombarding his brain. Attempting to halt the deluge of data, Han realized his mistake. "I should have approached this gradually," he lamented, his eyes closing as he succumbed to the overwhelming sensation. Regaining consciousness on the floor, Han's first thought was, "Am I still alive?" Startled, he scrambled to his feet, feeling rejuvenated. "What day is it?" he exclaimed, sensing a profound transformation within himself. "The improvement in my attributes is remarkable," he observed, It seems my capacity for logical thinking isn't the only thing that's expanded. Examining his enhanced skills in the system table, accounting, finance, marketing, and literature, all at level 3, Han recognized the significance of knowledge in bridging societal disparities. For some, certain knowledge may seem trivial, but for others, it holds immense value, he concluded. Visualizing himself as a figure of authority, adorned in a business suit with a crown atop his head, Han envisioned a future where experience and time would elevate him to the pinnacle of society, the highest elite. Sitting in a contemplative lotus position, Han's reverie was interrupted by the ringing phone. "Hello?" he answered. On the other end, a query arose. "Is this student Han? You requested a 15-day leave, and today marks the final day. Do you intend to skip the semester? Do you have a plan in mind?" Responding to the call with a mix of confusion and excitement, Han explains, "I'm sorry, but I'm not completely cured. I'll let you know when I feel better." Turning his attention to the system update, Han reads about the opportunity to increase charisma points. However, the initial requirement of 200,000 experience points prompts him to question the high cost. The system clarifies that while the current cost is 200,000, reaching level 5 will require a staggering 99,999,199 experience points. Han realizes that improving to level 5 would cost 10 million each, leading him to decline the update and attempt to put it out of his mind, deeming it premature. As he grapples with the complexities of the system, another notification arrives, introducing a new gift feature tied to spending. Overwhelmed by the intricacies, Han closes his eyes, resolving to tackle it later. Stepping out into the sunshine, Han attracts attention from passing girls. Straightening his hair, he internally declares, "Shanghai International University. I'm back?" Ready to embrace the next chapter, Han prepares to resume his academic journey. Walking down the street, Han instinctively adjusts the bridge of his nose, feeling grateful for the improvement in his appearance. With his eyesight restored and his nose healed, he notices the attention from passing girls and inwardly acknowledges, investing in those glasses was worth it. Approaching Teacher Lu's office, Han knocks on the door and introduces himself. "Teacher Lu," he begins, peering into the room. "I'm Han from the Faculty of Humanities. I came to check in." Invited to take a seat, Han explains his recent hospitalization and presents his certificate. "Here is my certificate," he says, offering it to Teacher Lu. Receiving the certificate, Teacher Lu expresses skepticism but swiftly moves past formalities. "Let's forget about the formalities and get down to business," he says, prompting Han's agreement. Recalling Teacher Lu's lack of assistance in his previous life, Han sizes him up, noting his limited intellect and physical stature. Confident in his own abilities, Han maintains eye contact with the teacher. "Thank you, teacher," Han says graciously. "How is the situation in our university dormitory?" Teacher Lu responds, mentioning the noisy conditions in Han's assigned dormitory. Understanding the implications for his recovery, Han offers Teacher Lu a red envelope, surprising him. The doctor advised against noisy environments. "This is a small token of appreciation from me," Han explains, smiling warmly. The teacher tucks the envelope into his shirt pocket, mentioning plans to apply for a 4-bedroom dormitory, albeit at a higher cost. Han, recalling past experiences of being mocked in a shared dormitory, swiftly intervenes, offering to cover the additional expenses with a bank card. "Don't worry, I'll pay," he reassures. Meanwhile, Yin receives a notification on her phone and sees a photo of the room from Han. She replies with a reminder to take care of himself. Reflecting on Yan's concern, Han appreciates her care as he unpacks in the room. Contemplating his transformation, he wonders how to explain it to his mother. Sitting back, Han checks his finances on the spreadsheet and decides to use some of his remaining funds to buy groceries. Thanking the cashier, he steps outside, only to notice a figure sitting nearby. Approaching the person, Han inquires about the price of a book, recalling that the individual's family faced financial difficulties and he worked hard to pay his tuition. "This book costs 168 yuan, the person replies. Han inquired, squatting beside the vendor with a book in hand, Do you sell used books at the original price? 100 yuan, the vendor exclaimed, thrusting another set of magazines towards Han. This one's a hot collector's edition. After a deep breath, Han declined, prompting a notification from the system. You've purchased a book on self-transformation. The gift function is activated. Enjoy an additional bonus. Speechless, Han accepted the book with a grin, hoisting it above his head momentarily before returning to reality. Perplexed, the vendor asked what he was doing. As Han stepped into a classroom filled with seated students, followed by men carrying magazines, someone announced, "Here's the teacher." "Quiet. Our final student has arrived. Let's welcome our new classmate with applause as he introduces himself." Han's mind wandered to a past plagued by insecurities. He recalled being ridiculed by classmates after self-introduction. But now, everything was different. Taking a seat beside the teacher, Han placed his hands on the desk, beaming as he addressed the class. "Hello, everyone. They say I hail from the city of dreams. Due to illness, I was hospitalized and couldn't join earlier. I regret it, and I hope to make amends in the future. It's an honor to be your classmate." The girls listened intently as Han spoke. "I've chosen to study finance because it offers a path to realizing my dreams. I aspire to be both kind and wealthy. I know it's a challenging journey, but I refuse to give up. My hope is to connect with others who share similar passions and goals," Han explained. "Looks like someone's lost in a daydream," a classmate teased. Undeterred, Han responded, "Despite the obstacles, we can navigate this journey together." All eyes turned to him as he raised his index finger. "I hope for success for us all in the future." "Very well said," the teacher chimed in, leading the class in applause. A red-haired girl leaned over to whisper to her dark-haired friend, who had been resting her head on the desk, asking for her thoughts on Han. Before leaving the podium, Han interjected, "I almost forgot 2 things. Firstly, if there's a leader among us, please step forward so we can discuss additional tasks and payment." He raised his finger again. "Secondly, is there at least one girl here who's interested in me? I'm young and inexperienced in love. If you are..." The previously drowsy girl suddenly blushed and perked up. "Meet me privately, not publicly." As Han stepped away, some classmates commented that he seemed self-centered. "He's staying in our dorm. Haven't seen him all morning," they murmured. As 2 guys walked past, Han reflected, "Louis and Don Zio. I don't think they'll be a problem for me. Just like in my past life, there's no need to worry about them." Taking a seat in the back row, Han thought, "It's begun." The girls became curious about Han, bombarding him with questions and requesting to add him as a friend. "Apologies," they said. Then, the girl approached, placing a piece of paper on Han's desk. "Hi," she greeted with a smile. "I'm CIA Letten, the group leader. Let's discuss your payment first, and then I'd like to add you as a friend." Zia Leon, one of the university's 3 goddesses, Han reflected. "She's won the title of Most Beautiful Goddess 3 times. But in my past life, she really disappointed me, almost driving me to leave the university." Blushing, he scratched the back of his head. "She's making demands already," he muttered, leaning in closer. Zeton raised an eyebrow. "What's with that? Can you even handle them?" Han believed he could change her this time. He flashed a playful smile. "Why should I add you as a friend? I was just looking for the headman," he teased, locking eyes with Zia Leon. "Maybe you actually liked me." Zia Letten blushed, adjusting her hair. "You think quite highly of yourself." "I'm not interested," she retorted. "How much for the lesson?" Han asked. "About 200 yuan," she replied. Handing over the money, Han inquired about event notifications. "I'll give you 3 days' notice," she assured him. As Zia Leon found herself a handsome companion, the red-haired girl unexpectedly hugged her from behind. Glancing at his phone, Han decided not to bother her further. The red-haired girl then took a seat beside him. "I'm Yuan," she introduced herself. "I'm from Young." "Yuan, that's a lovely name," Han remarked. "I like your name too. What are your hobbies?" Yuan asked, looking at Han expectantly, but he remained silent. She observed him closely, thinking he seemed disengaged. Pointing to his phone, Yuan inquired, Han, what brand is your phone? I've never seen one like it before. It's an Xiaomi i1, he replied. Yuan thought his demeanor resembled that of children from affluent families. Why did you choose it? She probed. Power, Han answered briefly and indifferently. Yuan's agitation becomes palpable as she abruptly rises from her seat, leaving in a huff, while Han remains stoic, devoid of any emotion. Han reflects on his reluctance to engage with her, noting her tendency to exploit others, a behavior he recalls from a past life where she feigned friendliness. He reminisces about Yin, who, despite initial reluctance and anger, still offered him a gift before resorting to manipulation for money. Deciding to stand up, Han is questioned by one of the girls about his lack of interaction with Yin, who they liken to the head girl in beauty. Another girl encourages friendliness. Han responds, I simply prefer not to engage with her. And while the head girl is indeed beautiful, it doesn't mean I prioritize appearance alone. The girls regard him attentively as he adds, furthermore, I value a person's character and intelligence more. Zia Leon glances at him disapprovingly from the side. As the month progresses, students gather around the elevator. When asked if he'll wait for it, Han gestures to the side, stating, my room isn't far. I'll take the stairs. The dorm windows illuminate with light. Inside the room, a request for cigarettes catches Han's attention. A blonde student kicks a chair in frustration. Han, hands tucked into his pockets, stands composed as the chair topples. The student angrily demands Han's departure, questioning his presence altogether. Han silently gazes at the reclined chair, drawing the attention of all three men in the room. The fair-haired man, lighting a cigarette, barely begins before Han's voice breaks the silence. Could you please vacate my premises and remember to retrieve your chair? Exhaling smoke, the man questions Han's request, to which Han responds by wordlessly lifting a chair and inquiring about the man's sleeping quarters. With a nod upwards, the man indicates the upper tier, prompting Han to ascend the stairs. Observing Han's actions, the fair-haired man muses to his companions about Han's intriguing demeanor, noting arrogance in his assessment. With a stretch and a grin, Han retrieves a hammer, eliciting fear from a bespectacled man with red hair. Seated in silence, the red-haired man gestures upward. Meanwhile, the fair-haired man, wearied, turns his attention elsewhere. Han assumes a meditative posture, clutching a book against the wall with one hand and a container of milk in the other, closing his eyes in a semblance of devotion. The men, startled and unnerved, observe Han's behavior with a mixture of fear and curiosity. Anger begins to simmer within the fair-haired man, yet he is restrained by his red-haired companion, who discerns the potential danger in Han's possession of a hammer. Sensing the need for caution, the red-haired man resolves to depart promptly, recognizing the urgency to vacate the premises. Han clutches a book tightly as he interrogates the fleeing men, his gaze imbued with an unsettling intensity. The bald man, trembling, indicates the fair-haired man, explaining that they were summoned by his girlfriend. Han's enigmatic smile deepens as he queries, "Girl?" Sweat beads on the fair-haired man's brow as they hastily exit the room, their fear palpable. "I seem to have frightened them quite a bit," Han remarks with a satisfied grin. Observing the characteristics of the electronic system table, Han reflects, despite possessing a system, I mustn't rely on it excessively. While it can provide knowledge, it cannot dictate my thoughts entirely. I must endeavor to rely more on my own efforts. Sunlight streams through the window as conversation ensues in the dining room between Yin and a girl, both students at the Faculty of Finance. They ponder the disparities of life, prompting another girl with brown hair and a ponytail to express frustration at the apparent unfairness. Turning to Zhan, Yuan questions her family's wealth, her irritation evident upon learning of multiple houses. Zia Letton, quiet and composed, sips juice through a straw with closed eyes, only to open them as Han, clad in his sports uniform, extends a hand, remarking on the joys of youth before indulging in March. The fair-haired man retorts, his gaze shifting before abruptly falling silent in dread. The cigarette tumbles from his lips to the floor as he locks eyes with Han, a tense silence enveloping the corridor. Confusion reigns among onlookers, one girl questioning the significance of their stare down, opining that Han seems remarkably unlucky. Han's stern countenance unnerves the fair-haired man, who sweats profusely, nervously laughing. The intervention comes from the bald and red-haired companions, offering greetings and breakfast inquiries. Sensing the tension, the fair-haired man prepares to flee, claiming prior engagements that prevent his return to the room. Yuan and Cutting speculate on the connection between Han and the fair-haired man, their whispers barely audible. The red-haired and bald men, rubbing their palms, offer assistance through Zedong and dined if needed. The sound of the elevator interrupts the scene. Han dismisses the offer, gesturing for his friends to enter first while blocking the fair-haired man's path with an intimidating glare. "We'll follow your lead," they assure, as Han positions himself in the elevator corner, signaling for the doors to close. Han stands quietly in the corner of the elevator, accompanied by Zia Lewin nearby. He steals a glance at her, noticing her blush as she adjusts her hair. She truly possesses an S-class figure, he thinks to himself, feeling a slight flush creep into his cheeks. However, his reverie is abruptly interrupted by the opening doors, signaling everyone's departure from the elevator. As Han and Zia Lewin remain standing, someone places a hand on Han's shoulder, praising his ability to instill fear in Huan and his friends. "Have you known each other before?" the person inquires. Han stiffens, removing the hand from his shoulder. "Please refrain from touching me. I find it unpleasant," he responds, his gaze sharp with anger. The person admires Han's strength, nervously glancing at his own shirt pocket where Han holds his wallet. Han, unfazed, acknowledges the gesture, saying, "Thank you for looking after my wallet," before patting the person on the shoulder. Feeling remorseful, the person hastily apologizes and exits the elevator, bidding farewell to H. Reflecting on the encounter, Han muses on the possibility of resolving conflicts without resorting to violence. The person's name is revealed to be Zhe Luton. Turning without displaying any emotion, Han slips his hands into his pockets and queries what happened. Yuan crosses her arms, questioning his recent rudeness towards someone. Han simply passes by, stating he doesn't recall the incident, and heads into the classroom. As Yuan excitedly waves at him, Zia Lewin catches his gaze as she walks by. Seating herself and resting her head in her hands, she wonders aloud about the type of friends Han wishes to cultivate. Han raises a finger, suggesting a preference for friends who ask fewer questions, prompting laughter from Yin. Blushing, Zhe Leon glances at Yin, who wipes away tears of laughter, apologizing for her outburst and complimenting Han's humor. Drawing closer to Han, she expresses a desire to add him to wet chat, but Han hesitates, explaining his infrequent communication due to his phone being in silent mode. Offended, Zia Luton questions if he hasn't responded to her message because he doesn't see her as a prefect. Han, recalling his busy day, apologizes, but Zia Luton, feigning disinterest, pretends to read a book, avoiding his gaze. Despite his attractiveness, she muses, picturing Han surrounded by girls with vegetable heads, she finds his character lacking. Resolving to keep her distance, she glances at Han, only to widen her eyes as he continues writing, absorbed in his book, seemingly oblivious to everything else. As Han ponders, he acknowledges his proficiency at level 3 accounting but realizes there's still much he doesn't comprehend. While the current questions aren't overly challenging, he recognizes that full understanding will enable him to leverage his knowledge for financial gain. An open question lies on the table, symbolizing the pursuit of knowledge. Yet, he contemplates that possessing knowledge is one thing. Understanding it is another. The more knowledge he acquires, the greater the challenge of comprehension becomes, potentially overwhelming him. With a sense of frustration, he grips his head with both hands, contemplating the burden knowledge may become if not properly grasped. Deciding to tackle the challenge head-on, he gathers textbooks and notebooks, ensuring readiness for future endeavors. Formulating a plan, he commits to diligent action. Observing him, Zia Lewin wonders about his intense focus on problem-solving, while Yin casually scrolls through his phone, oblivious to the ongoing class discussion. she mutters. Can't I figure this out myself? Han interrupts her, and she responds irritably, yes, yes. Simultaneously, she wonders why he's still here if he has such self-learning abilities. Han holds a yellow book in his hand and begins, after the summer holidays, I got into a fight and ended up in the hospital, missing the entrance exam opportunity. Despite being a genius, my lack of motivation held me back in the past. Now, I'm trying to change that. He sets the book down among the others. Zay Luton and Yuan exchange glances as he challenges, it's your choice whether to believe me or not. Zia Luton expresses disbelief, accusing him of lying, while Yuan subtly supports him, earning a suspicious glance from Han. I believe in your genius, she affirms with a wink and a thumbs up. Han internally reflects, Yin, you're not foolish either, suspecting her motives. You used to toy with naive boys, but now you've married into wealth as you desired. It's no wonder you're drawn to me. Yin and Zia Luton exchange glances as Han jokes, wisdom comes with age. Since you doubt me, what's your take on me? Yuan turns to him, and Zia Luton blushes, hesitantly offering her perspective. Firstly, you're undoubtedly a genius, but your poor attitude in high school hindered your academic dedication, she begins. Han, surprised by her frankness, listens as Zia Luton paints a picture of him as a bully in sweatpants, narrating how his neglect of studies led to a breakup with his girlfriend on the eve of exams. Fueled by revenge, he ended up hospitalized after a failed confrontation, only recently recovering his senses. Fury ignited within him, a desire for retribution. With a scowl etched on his face, Han immersed himself in rigorous study. He clung to the phone, a memento from his ex-girlfriend, a constant reminder of his resolve. Determined to avoid repeating past mistakes, he steered clear of alluring distractions, maintaining a safe distance. As the girl approached, Han brushed her off, steadfast in his commitment to focus solely on his studies. Unfazed, she smiled confidently, pointing an accusatory finger at Han. In your introduction, you mentioned seeking a new relationship to move on from your ex-girlfriend, yet you've taken no action, paralyzed by past wounds. It's understandable to fear embarking on a new romance, she remarked, her tone rational. Zay Leon, hands on hips, directed a sardonic smile at Han. Ever considered trying your hand at short story writing? He quipped. Blushing, Zutan retorted, between managing classes and solving student council issues, I barely have time for novels. Han's narrowed gaze confirmed her hit the mark, intrigued by her response. Reflecting on their shared history, Han marveled at Zane's remarkable achievements despite their rocky past. Memories flooded back, recalling her unwavering strength, self-control, and discipline. Even in their wedding photo, she exuded an air of resilience. I never imagined she possessed such depth, he mused, resting his head in his hands and contemplating his next move. In all my previous years, I never knew she had a knack for writing novels, Han ruminated, acknowledging her shrewdness. Uncertainty clouded his thoughts. What course of action should he take? An idea sparked in Han's mind, triggering a memory from the past. He recalled an incident when he had visited her office to use the printer. In her haste, she had cautioned him not to disturb her files, but inadvertently, he caught sight of a message that flashed on her screen, time for the monthly update. Realization dawned upon him. This must be her account for writing novels. Intrigued, he resolved to uncover the secrets she was concealing. Meanwhile, Zay Luton focused intently on her textbook, engrossed in her studies. As she reached for a pen, she couldn't shake the feeling of being scrutinized by Han. Her nerves flared, and she suddenly blurted out about the novels he had no knowledge of. Startled by her own words, she quickly redirected the conversation to a call from class. Yuan invited Han to join them at the cafeteria, but he declined, preoccupied with his unresolved matters regarding Fane's tears. Leaning on Zia Leon, Yuan expressed her surprise at being rejected, questioning if Han was merely toying with her. Zay Luton advised her to ignore Han's actions and playfully tapped her forehead, dismissing the issue. As darkness enveloped the streets, Han strolled, lost in thought, clutching papers and contemplating the tasks awaiting him tomorrow. With no classes scheduled, he planned to purchase a computer, a phone, and a new SIM card. Approaching his door, he lamented the steep communication fees but resolved to be more frugal. With determination, he grasped the door handle, entering a room where everyone else was already asleep. Juan jolts awake, startled by a sudden noise. Han shuffles across the room,